was running with a team of 10 guys fresh out of school and trying to make a game that's a cross between GTA, F-Life 2, and a big RPG.
It's a very small scope there.
So it's actually a true story I had a meeting in Paris the other day. So at some point you need to be you need to have your eyes wide open and say, okay, I can do this, I cannot do that. With a team of 10 guys fresh out of school, I need to start with a relatively smaller scope and pitch something that I can actually develop with a reasonable amount, because otherwise you will not be able to make it.
I'll probably suggest something about watermelon spacemen at some time myself. Just getting back to it, I mean, how big is the shift, do you think, towards your online distribution models, and especially as publishers? I mean, what's the financial and market benefit to launch titles online potentially, or even just your Xbox Live titles and things like that? I mean, is this a good thing for publishers?
I think it's a great thing for publishers, and you know, Steve's right on point. There are a lot of different ways for you to get your games out there today. Digital distribution, we're not at a critical mass by any point, but what we really we're looking at it as kind of a different way to get to consumers, and we're waiting for the day when we can, you know, not bypass retail, but you know, use it at the same level in terms of getting our game out there. And it's obviously we don't have to share the cost with retail, and on the PC front, we don't have to pay the first parties any fees or cost of goods or things of that nature. So financially, it's great for everybody involved. The more money goes to the developers and the creators. So we're actively pursuing that. You know, right now, the main source of our revenue does come from retail, so that's where a lot of our focus is.
Okay. Look, I mean, that's the online distribution is very positive. We're all very excited about that. I would like to get back to probably some of the things that are a little bit more concerning at the moment, such as, I mean, how the financial crisis actually affects. I mean, the one thing I tend to hear is that, you know, the gaming industry is a little bit, or games are recession-proof. Yeah, I'm not sure about that, and I kind of have to wonder, next year, for example, how much will the publishers kind of be reining things in? I mean, you were saying that you've got a plan until 2012. Do things like this change that plan?
For us, not so much, but none of us can tell the future, so I don't know what's going to happen next year. Okay. We're going to be disciplined with our portfolio plan, and we're going to execute on it. Hopefully, people will be there and have the money to buy the games.
Yeah, I mean, you read the news. Pardon me, read the news. I mean, THQ, we actually closed our studios a couple weeks ago, and it's part of it. Literally is part of the recession that's kind of hit us. And the goal was to get more focus on games, doing fewer things. So I think what we're finding from an investment standpoint, we're going to be able to invest in fewer things. As far as the retail community and being recession-proof, people are going to play games, they're going to buy games. I think what's happening right now is they're just being much more selective. Instead of 3 games under the Christmas tree this Christmas, it might be 1. So.
But there's so many to choose from.
I know. That's where our marketing department has to do a good job of making sure they get you guys to buy it.
No, fair enough. And also, just touching on this very briefly, because you did mention that there have been, and it happens all the time, that the studios are closed down. At what point does a publisher actually decide that this game has gone over budget or over time, or it's missed its deadlines, and at what point does a publisher decide to cut that? That's a tough one. I know that is a tough one. But it's very interesting because I personally hear very different things from very different publishers. Some of them will not tolerate any misstep at all, whereas some will let it go. And I wonder, especially the ones that don't tolerate any misstep at all, to cut that seems to you lose that game in total. I'm just wondering how strained does that put the relationship on between the publishers and the developers?
I think it really depends on what difference you can make with extra time or extra money. Because at the end of the day, if you spend 6 more months, but the game is the same, or the same level of the extra unit, there's no point in more extra money and extra time for development. So
the expectation is to make an 80, 85 rated game for X amount of dollars in X amount of time, and when you start hitting certain points and the game isn't there, you really have to take a step back and you have to look at it. Is the game ever going to be there? Like Fabrice said, if we put more money and more time into it, will we get there? And how does that affect our bottom line at the end of the day? I don't think any of us want to put out a game that isn't the game that we meant to make. So that there does come a point where you have to make a hard decision whether we continue going down this path and hope for the best, or we just don't think we can get there and we just gotta cut it loose and maybe try something different.
It's very rare that somebody sets out to make a bad game. Even the worst games out there, the ones that have got the lowest reviews, I guarantee there was a developer that slept under their desk, you know, for several weeks at a time just to finish that. So the decisions to stop games or cut games or close studios, I mean, there's so many factors that can be involved in that. And you know, there's the flip side, like these guys are talking about, when there's a germ of an idea or something that does look right and it does need more time. I mean, the Blob was a perfect case of that, where we had, we were originally, I think this schedule's about 14 months long. We got into about the 8th month and said, you know, we've got something pretty special here. It could use another 8-9 months of development. We went back and fought for it. They gave us the extra time, the extra money, and you know, it paid off. But I think it's a case by case. And what we're trying to do, and I think every publisher and developer is trying to get better at the pre-production side of things. Well, those first few months of development, that first year of development, trying to spend less upfront to find out if the idea is working. Some of the, you know, core gameplay, is it fun? I mean, that's the first thing I ask my team. Are you having fun doing this? Because sometimes as developers you get too caught up in story and you're trying to say, wow, I've got the greatest story in the world, and you know, believe me, I've been doing it for a long time, and I still think if we can, we're still on like bad cable television in terms of how we tell stories in video games, and I really wish, you know, I think that will be the next, you know, I think there's more and more things. I think Grand Theft Auto told a story that, you know, had, for good or bad, at least it had passion and was trying to drive things forward a different way. And yeah, so I think that's my direction.
No, fair enough. Look, I've actually just got a question there, over pointing at. With my class. Go ahead.
Look, failure, you know, and that's such a weird word to use and a negative one, but in terms of financial success and everything for a game, a great story when Majesco came out and visited us is Cooking Mama. You know, they put out titles that were much bigger and on consoles, and they invested a lot of money into that year. And say if they had 6 titles, you know, 5 of them might not have done so well. And Cooking Mama, the title that they had just picked up for, you know, maybe under $100,000, come in and picked all the other titles up, you know, made the money back for everything they lost. And so, as a publisher, I guess it's a two-pronged question. How does your internal teams and as a publisher turn around and go, okay, well, we estimated this wrong. This is, you know, this title is actually selling heaps. These girls that are picking up their brothers' DSs are really into this or whatever. And then how do you go about attacking the developers that are making these handheld games? You know, being an Australian developers, a lot of us do handheld and stuff like that. How do you go for those little phenomenons that you never saw coming and then bang, you hit with it? Well, I guess, how does it change those?
Somebody comes and says, hey, did anybody do Cooking Daddy yet?
Yeah.
It's usually the first question. Did somebody trademark that? You know, they come from such, the ones that come from left field, like Cooking Mama, Brain Age, I mean, they catch every publisher off guard. And you know, some of them, and I think Ubisoft has done, frankly, a great job of reacting to some of this instead of a whole series of, you know, my games and whole branding. And it can be very opportunistic, but, you know, finding those little gems, you know, we all look for them. And, you know, sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't. Yeah, brilliant when you do.
And you have to be careful of not creating